What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of E-commerce Influence Podcast. My name is Austin Bronner, and I got a banger of an episode for you guys today. I've got my friend, Drew Sanocki, on the podcast. Drew he's an e-commerce vet. He has bought and turned around multiple e-commerce brands, including Karma Loop and Auto Anything. And more recently, he bought an app and put some money into it, turned it around, started to grow it. That app then turned into a company called PostPilot, which is one of the fastest growing companies in the country. Went from 5 employees last year to over 100 this year. And he's really, I'm sure a lot of you guys are customers of PostPilot. It is an incredible company. And he's really an interesting guy because we kind of dive into life outside of running PostPilot. Like, how do you have a balanced life while running a company that is growing incredibly fast, like 10% plus month over month? He talks a lot about kind of like his routine every day, how he shows up for his kids, his family, fitness, and really like kind of pulls back the curtain on his life. So super interesting episode, and I hope you guys enjoy. Drew, welcome back, man. Welcome to the podcast. Been a little while.
Good to be here. Good to be here. I didn't know the podcast is back.
Podcast is back. It's back. It's changing. And I think I was just like, one of the things I was like, I haven't talked to Drew for a while. It's been a long time since we caught up. He's just on a fucking rocket ship.
I don't think you've talked to a lot of people for a while.
No, I haven't.
Because you've had your son and you've been.
I have. Yeah.
Been in it.
I've been in the baby game. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a different world. It's a different world. I definitely called you like, oh man, I don't know how many months in. I remember talking to you and you were just like, yeah, the game has changed.
No, it'd be like I couldn't do anything for years when I had my kids. I guess I could do some light consulting.
Yeah.
But just the idea of like keeping a podcast going or incubating a business, like, I don't think I could have done that.
Yeah. How old are your kids now? I'm trying to remember.
They're 9 and 11.
Okay. Yeah. So they're at school, right? What's going on?
They're
like,
at school
what
now.
is that?
It's great. They play with each other. They play with other kids. That was another big, you get to that point where they start playing with other kids instead of you. It's a little bit sad, but it also means you can work later than school pickup,
Yeah. There's like, I forget what it is. It's like age 10. It's like before age 10, you are your kid's favorite person.
Yeah.
And then at age 10, it generally switches and they start to look externally where they're starting to like find friends and they don't want to spend all their time with you anymore. It's more like, oh, you're cool, but this kid might be cooler.
Yeah. No, I think, my son's probably past that over the last year.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay to have around, but it's all about his friends. My daughter's I'm still number one for the daughter.
You've got a year left for the cool stock drops.
Yep. The dad jokes like don't go over anymore.
Yeah.
With the son. But they go over with the daughter, which is great.
But no, we haven't chatted too much. I'm just kind of continued to be updated every month with what's going on with PostPilot. And yeah, man, I'm interested in, I want to get into PostPilot and talk about kind of how you're doing, but I want to start with sprinting. Tell me about it.
Sprint workouts.
Yeah.
I was put on to sprinting by Sean O'Mara, Dr. Sean, on Instagram. He's kind of in the carnivore community, but he's really his own thing. He's into longevity and high performance, and makes a strong argument that the number one indicator of health is low visceral fat. It's like the fat that's inside your body next to the organs. That's the worst kind of fat you can have, because it leads to inflammation and cancers and metabolic disease, all this stuff. And And the number one way to reduce that is through sprinting. So, he's got me on a sprint workout. It's a couple times a week. I go to the beach, I go all out for, 8 to 10 seconds. And it's been great. I love it.
And so what's the warm up look like for that?
Well, I do, a couple at like 50%, which for me is like walking. As grandma's passing me as they walk. Those are my warm-ups, and so I do some like high kicks and butt kickers, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Looks really funny on the beach. But it's one of those things that, like, from an evolutionary point of view, we had to sprint. We had to sprint to get away from prey or to catch game. And throughout our life, if you look at like indigenous tribes and like, you never lose your ability to sprint. Like, you should be able to go to a cold sprint from zero without any warm up. It's a really good indicator of health, but only in modern society, is the first time humans haven't been able to do that. And it's one of those things that if, as a male, if you stop sprinting after 30, like, you really can't do it anymore. Like 95% of the people don't sprint our age, my age, they won't be able to. So they'll do one sprint and then they'll just be down. Like their back will hurt, or they'll pull a hamstring. So I'm still trying to get to the point where I don't need, like, if you told me to sprint right now, I would probably need a little bit of warm up, but it's a great exercise.
You
and I go down to the beach here.
Drop the headset and just
just
bang,
go, man.
Back in 8 to 12 seconds, continue podcasting.
Yeah. And it really burns fat. It's probably better than anything else. It's like a HIIT workout.
Yeah. It's interesting. What you're talking about. Like, I find that, there's very few times in my life right now when I have even the opportunity to sprint, unless I just go out deliberately and go choose to do that. It's like some games, right? Like, I'll play like some games where you kind of can sprinting, stuff like that. But I've been playing mostly a ton of CrossNet. Have you played that game?
Yeah.
Fantastic game.
Yeah.
So fun. And that's like where I get like the most aggressive exercise out. It's like jumping, full on diving, that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that, it's very likely you can go months, if not years, without something like that. Do you notice you sleep better, or any other changes outside of like the visceral fat?
I've started doing sauna,
like
hot saunas. Peter Attia, the longevity doctor. He came out with a study that showed if you do a hot sauna for 20 minutes 4 times a week, it decreases your risk of heart attack like 30% or so. It's significant. And I've been doing it, and that's the thing that I can tell on the days I sauna. I sleep a lot better. I sleep like a rock. I fall asleep. I fall asleep instantly, get tired at 9. So I would say that has probably more to do with it than the sprinting.
Sure. Yeah,
but
Peter
it's funny because I started posting, just like, I was in a sprint challenge. Some guy set it up. You got to post videos of you doing a sprint for the month of September. This Instagram guy, Fasted Strength, he's sort of in that Omara school. Yeah. And I was posting those, and those became like way more, I've been posting about digital marketing for like 15 years, and nobody cares. And everybody just is like, oh, okay, tell me about the sprinting, So
I think it's a good reminder. It's like, when you think about marketing, that is out of the ordinary. Like, because what I mean, 50, you're what? You're 50, 51?
Yep.
Okay, 51. Like, the number of 51-year-olds that are sprinting is less than 1%.
Yeah.
So
I'm telling you,
it's the first thing I asked you.
It's my next thing.
Yeah.
Go
full on Mark Sisson. And
right. Well, he's like the legend.
He's the GOAT.
Guy. He is. I don't know if anybody Google him. Like, I don't know what he is. Late 70s, mid 70s.
Yeah. I think he's like early to mid 70s, ripped, tan, healthy, runs, sprints, paddle boards.
Started Primal Primal
Started
Foods,
Primal. Yeah.
sold it to Kraft, maybe one of the bigger food companies acquired
Yeah.
them, and yeah, he's done really well.
He's interesting too, because I don't think he started Primal Foods till he was like in his mid to late 50s or something like that.
Yeah, my
maybe
age,
even
basically. Yeah.
even older. What's that?
Like my age.
Yeah,
You were going to say
but
he's old. He was old, like in his 50s, is what you were going to say.
I was going to say, I said mid to late 50s. You're not there
Okay,
yet.
yeah.
You're not, especially with your sprinting, you're aging backwards. You might even be like 49. You actually once told me something, and I'll never forget it. We were talking about how, like, when you move out of New York, like 40 in New York is 30 anywhere else, and 50 is 40. And I remember
It's, in New York, I'm an old dad, I guess. My oldest is 11.
Yeah.
But in New York, that was par for the course. You'd go to a playground. All my friends waited until their late 30s to get married.
Yeah.
Everybody,
it makes sense.
You're just playing the field, you're doing everything, having fun, and then you settle down. And it's a little bit like musical chairs, like who's going to be the last? Like all of a sudden, between 35 and 40, everybody gets married. And, you go to playgrounds in New York and all the dads are your age, which is great.
Yeah.
And I moved to San Diego and I go to pick up my kids at school here, and there's like 20-year-old dads, they're probably a little older, but yeah, picking up kids who are in my son's class.
Seinfeld has a joke about it. He says something like, it's like, I'm late to get married, late to have kids. If I remember, I was having some issues. I was quite enjoying those issues. Well, so outside of sprinting, right, one of the things you're doing is building a business that is really from an outside vantage point, and I think from an inside vantage point, pretty much growing as what seems like as fast as it can. And so this is PostPilot. I'm interested in kind of hearing, this is beginning of Q4. I'm interested kind of your perspective, because we talked about PostPilot. I remember talking about PostPilot when you bought it, when it was just this tiny little software company that you bought from this guy who built it on, I don't know if it was on the side or whatnot, but it's really turned into something quite large. Did you expect this?
No. I mean, we bought it for $50K, $60K off the developer. It wasn't really a company. I mean, he probably made $500 off it. He had built a plugin to Shopify that, when an order came through, would print and send a card.
Yeah.
And so I knew I had a thesis around direct mail. I was like, that's interesting. We want Klaviyo for direct mail. As a marketer wanted that. I've always used direct mail when I've run businesses, and I just needed it to be easier. So I bought it off him. And, we spent it sort of sounds impressive, like bought it for $50K and now it's doing whatever. But we did spend about a year on the product, and I put money in then, along with Mike Epstein. And the developer became our lead developer in sort of that effort. And, now we passed 8 figures ARR earlier this year. So it's just been growing like a rocket, like tripling or quadrupling every year. And I think it just speaks to, I'd like to say I saw all this coming, but there was like a solid year there where we were putting a lot of money into it and it wasn't really doing much.
Yeah.
I think we were helped by some serious tailwinds. We got
For
lucky.
Sure.
iOS 14 and just made retargeting a lot harder on mobile devices. And I think that was a shock to the system for a lot of CMOs in like 2021, that they didn't want to have their whole business relying on one channel, on Meta. And, oh man, I should diversify, and maybe I think I saw a lot of D2C brands all of a sudden becoming more diversified across channels. Then they started realizing that they might have had, maybe we need to go into brick and mortar or add on direct mail. So that's been a big tailwind. costs of ads continue to go up. And so direct mail becomes relatively more competitive and attractive over time. So yeah, we've had some tailwinds. But I've been on the other side. I mean, it's luck, but I would say we've been on the other side. Auto Anything was killing it up until COVID, when it just got killed. All the supply chain was in Asia, and we couldn't get product for a year and a half. So,
and crazy because the demand was probably going up at that point too.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was epic demand, and we couldn't get product to save our life. So,
yeah, man, it's crazy. It's definitely my favorite email to receive every month is the investment email from you talking about the growth of PostPilot. I'm like, it's also funny because you're writing it and I know how you write, and it's like your personality.
I think it's interesting because it is a little bit of, we went vertical a year and a half ago. We have printers. Like, we've got a printer on the East Coast, on the West Coast, now in the UK. And it's like, it's old school in a bit, right? Like, I never aspired to own a print operation, but especially in the last few years, it's all been about crypto and then about AI and just incredible growth stories there. And here we are with a business model that's been around for like 100 years, and we're printing, and it's still growing pretty well.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting to see. I know you put on, so when you look at headcount now, and you talked about growing from, you bought it 50K, had a couple years. I remember those years when you were just kind of working on the side where you're putting money into it, improving it. And then you hire the developer to be kind of like lead developer. Maybe he's on during that time. Where are you at now, headcount wise? And how much of where are you at now? I'm interested to hear kind of like how much growth organizationally has had to come along with this growth from the business.
Yeah, it'll be over 100 by the end of the year. 100 people.
Is that the largest company you've ever led?
No. I mean, Auto Anything at the beginning was probably 350.
Okay.
But this will be over 100, and a year, at the beginning of last year, it was 5. Just to give you a sense of how fast it's growing. Yeah. Which presents all sorts of challenges, because you think about the average tenure of anybody at the company is a few months, Yeah. So how do you deliver
you're hiring one every 3 days?
Yeah, we're hiring. Yeah. So a lot of those are in the facility. They work the printers. Yeah. It's not like I have 100 engineers, and if you're like adding up how much it costs, there's a bit of a difference, but and it's all bootstrap. I mean, more or less bootstrap, which has been great. We're cash flowing. We put all the money back into the business, but it's been organic growth.
So you had Auto Anything, you were building that, growing that during COVID, and then you kind of switched most of your energy. I mean, it seems like almost all your energy now to PostPilot.
Yeah, 100%.
What's the biggest difference between growing a SaaS business and all of the other stuff you've done has been mostly like turnaround e-commerce?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is probably customer lifetime value. Like at a SaaS business, because the subscriptions are built in, the LTVs are so high. We've got customers that spent $1 million with us. Yeah. And so it just, and you've got fewer that really, we've got 9,000 brands on the platform, but the 80-20 still works. Probably 10% of those are driving the business. And so, I get that's similar to e-commerce in that you have an 80-20 in your customers, right? But because the lifetime values are so high, it allows you to do a lot different. Like the sale, you can take more time selling. You can adopt like a concierge model. I fly around, I visit customers, we have meetups in cities. Like you don't do that at a D2C business, but it's justified for us. And then I think the biggest difference is that's probably number one. Number two is like, as a software company, you're valued on a multiple of revenue, not a multiple of EBITDA. And so you just do things. My whole career in private equity and running D2C businesses has been about cash flow and like get it profitable. Like what was profit? How profitable were you? And optimizing for that. And now it's like, hey, if we're gonna have a growth story, we got to keep growing. It's going to be about the top line, and we don't want to bleed cash on the way up, but like all the money has to go back in the business. It's not like a lifestyle business. We're not going to take any money out of it. It just all goes back into growth.
Yeah, continuing to kind of drive that engine and continue to tell the growth story of the
Right.
business.
Right.
Yeah, I'm interested in. I mean, you talked about you said 9 and 11-year-old. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know. I mean, I've known you for a long time, and I know how important family is to you, and how good of a father you are. How do you do it? What is your? I'm interested, kind of from a tactical perspective, actually, like how you manage your time running a business that's growing this fast. And then also I'm interested, maybe to start with, like philosophically, like how do you think about the balance between growing this business that's, for all intents and purposes, on a rocket ship, and still showing up and being present at home?
I mean, it's a lot of work. You got to be intentional about it, right? Right down to, my wife and I have quarterly goals, like OKRs, just like the business. And we're really, she's got her own career. So it's constant communication with her about who does what and how we're going to prioritize things. And it's a priority to bring the kids to school and pick them up every day. To have one-on-one time with the kids. That's in my list of goals. 15 minutes of one-on-one time with each kid at least a day. So it's being intentional about it, and then track all that stuff. I make sure that I got those 15 minutes in, at least. And the weekends, I try to take off. It's hard, but it's doable. I think, especially if you're I don't know, I hesitate to say if you're the CEO, it's a little bit easier, but I have a team around me too, so a lot of it's like making sure you've got a good team that can do the work. And, as CEO, not all the work is as urgent as it might be for, one of my customer support reps, right?
Sure.
A lot of my stuff is longer term and just means I can do it after the kids go to bed, or when they're at school, as opposed to when they're around.
And so what is your typical day schedule? What time do you like wake up? When do you get your sprints in? Most importantly. But actually I'm interested, like when do you wake up? I think you work from home still, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm up at like 4:35. And then it used to be light here in Southern California. I would go to the beach right then, but now it's dark for an hour. I'll do a little bit of work. My son gets up. I've been meditating, just to try to like get him kind of in that practice. And then,
you and he have been.
Yeah, a little
That's
bit.
cool.
Playing around with it. I go to the beach with the dog. As soon as the sun comes up, we do our sprints, we do our walk. The dog's on the same program. I might go
he's just shedding visceral fat.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen my Instagram video of me sprinting. Like the dog is like a blur, she just like blows right by me. Come home. I make breakfast. I make lunch for the kids. They're up. Eventually my wife gets up, but I'm mornings, so I'm get them fed, get the lunches made. She takes them to school. And then I crank. I usually have my team meetings in the morning, my one-on-ones. I've got my 2 or 3 rocks for the day that I try to get through, and then I do calls in the afternoon. And then I'm pickup, so that's about 3. Mm-hmm. I'll go and get them. The biggest pain in the ass now has been like after school activities, like sports or music or whatever, because you got to bring them there. So that's the thing I'm trying to hack now. But that's either my wife or I. And
I feel like you're about to go into the teeth of after school activities.
Yeah, right? It's constant.
Yeah.
And everybody's got virtual assistants, and there's a zillion services for that. But it's kind of like you need one with a driver's license in your in your neck of the woods to make sense now. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So yeah, we got a little bit of work done, but I mean, it's mostly just after the kids come home, hang out with them and
Yeah.
Get dinner around the table, and then I work again after they go to bed.
And then how do you go to sleep? What, 9, 10 o'clock?
8:30, 9.
No,
I go to bed
I mean,
early.
Yeah. I'm kind of in a similar page. I've been waking up on a similar 5:30 and like working before my son gets up, and it's just changed the game for me. It's like, okay, now I can actually be productive if I'm up, but I have to go to bed at 9. If I'm going to wake up at 5:30, it's like, I got to be in bed at 9. I'm like,
that's my favorite. My favorite time is 4:30 or 5 to 6:30, because I just crank. That's when I'll write. If I'm doing some content work, that's when I do it. Or just like the heavy lifting, I can just, no one's around, no one's gotten up yet, and just have my coffee and crank.
Yeah. So similar page. It's there was a while where it just like wasn't possible. And, when he was super young, because I was on baby duty in the morning, that was kind of my wife and I would trade it, where I would take him from like 5:30 to 9:30 while she slept, and then she'd take back over. And yeah, I mean, once we got past that, and he now sleeps in till about 7:30, something like that, it's changed. And I feel so much more grounded if I can get up early, do some writing, get some work done, have a coffee before actually like going to the next more like practical hands-on stuff.
Your son's 1 now?
He's 16 months.
Yeah. So you've got some more predictability, like he's settled down. And
totally.
Is your wife starting to work again?
A little bit. She's like just kind of dipping her toe into it, but we're also kind of on the page of like, she might get pregnant soon, hopefully. Right. Like we're thinking about a second. So it's like, what calculus do you make? Because it's just, it's interesting. And from the practical side, I have a lot of conversations with my friends who are running businesses, dads, because, to a certain extent, there's the philosophical side, and then there's actually like the practical. How do you do it?
Yeah. It's a bit of like, if you're going to have a kid, this is a conversation you got to have with your wife. I'm sort of amazed that a lot of people don't have it, and they're blindsided by like, the wife's like, oh, I was going to work. And the dad's like, well, I wanted to work too, and it's like, who like that sort of division of labor and who does what is really important, unless you have a spouse who's okay with staying home the whole time and taking on the kid, which is a huge job. But would definitely recommend having that conversation before you have a kid.
Totally. Because otherwise it just builds levels of tension outside and resentment.
Which we went through all that before we ultimately sat down and had those conversations. It's like, I'm making the money. No, I'm making the money now. I should get to work. You got to go pick up the kids. There's a lot of that.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting and fun. And I go back to some of the conversations we had when he was like right before he was born, and then when he was super, super little, and you were just talking about kind of like just realizing what's possible when you have a really young kids, like what is possible, what's not possible. And I've kind of like taken away some of your wisdom from that, which is, do what you can do when you have little kids, and then it will change. Like that's the only constant I found. It does evolve.
It did set me down that sort of buy versus build path too. Like I knew that, I think I've said like entrepreneurship in my 40s was going to be buying businesses and getting an operator in there to run it. And I just wanted to do that again and again and again, because I knew that like you buy something that has cash flow, that has customers, you can pay yourself. And if you're not the operator, you don't have to work 9 to 5 on the business. That's just a great option once you decide to have a family, to sort of adopt that like private equity kind of roll up your own little group of private equity companies, right? Make your own acquisitions. It's a great option. And that's sort of what I intended to do with PostPilot. It just happened to take off, right before PostPilot, we bought Overtone, and it was like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this. But then one of them took off to the extent it has, and I've been all in on it.
And then so overtone, for people who don't know what overtone is, can you explain a little bit about like your thesis with overtone? And then also, is Ezra operating it?
Yeah. So that was, sort of what I've been doing for the last 10 years, which is buy these brands that are a little bit busted. Usually they're losing money, and it's like value investing, but where you find a deal that's got a little bit of hair on it, and the owners want to sell, or a bigger company wants to divest of this property, and typically you get a deal on it and go in, turn it around, get it cash flowing, and then sell it. So Overtone was like a rocket ship through COVID. Everybody was coloring their hair, and fell on hard times as we came out of COVID. Like, they had overstaffed. They were on a complicated tech stack. So bought it along with Ezra. And then we were backed by the PE group that had acquired Boom from Ezra. And, got it on Shopify, got it on Klaviyo, got it on PostPilot, turned it around, cash flowing, growing again. And now Ezra's running that.
Cool. And it's so funny, man. Like, we were like, people start coloring their hair during COVID. Like, some of the weirdest things came out, like the second order consequences of locking people in their houses. It's like, oh, we're just going to start. It's just going to, the coloring hair business is just going to boom.
Yeah. Yeah. And it did. But that was the idea. It's like, okay, buy Overtone. Then we're going to buy some more and just keep doing it. But that was before PostPilot sort of took off.
Yeah. No. And so when you were like raising the money for these, you partnered with the PE company, with the PE firm. Is that the way that for most of the business you bought, is that the way you've gone about it? Or how did you,
yeah,
I think a lot of people ask questions. They're like, how did he buy these businesses?
There's this whole world of like small business loans that I see a lot of people doing.
Yeah.
Bill D'Alessandro talks about that a ton. And that's not the route I've gone. I've gone typically because the deals I've worked on are bigger. Mm-hmm. So they're a little bit beyond what a SBA loan could get you. So it's working with a private equity fund that, you identify the opportunity. They can help you put the deal together and finance it. And then in return, you're like, if you're the deal architect, if you put everything together, you can carve out some equity for yourself. You could also put some of your own money in the deal. And then you run it.
And then if the operator craps out, you hop in.
Well, that's what happened with Auto Anything. But
yeah.
Not with Overtone.
You weren't, not in Overtone.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. I feel like there's a lot of people that are interested in that sort of model. It's becoming.
Yeah, but private equity is like a black box because I don't think your typical digital marketer has connections there. No. So one thing I did with my career was I did a lot of the same consulting everybody does in digital marketing, SEO, paid, but I just did it for private equity instead of for brands. And so I worked on developing that network there. And
how did you get connected initially?
I think just because, I went to business school and like a lot of my classmates had gone into it. So I knew a little bit about it. I knew them and just was a natural fit. And it's great if you're a consultant because they're they don't care to, if they pay you $50K for diligence on a deal, it's like pales in comparison to what they're paying lawyers and bankers. And they're all finance people with very little knowledge about digital. Yeah. So it's like it is a core skill set that you have and they don't. Yeah. So it's you're valuable to them,
It's really interesting. Post COVID, when you're looking at deals, I don't know if you've been so into PostPilot right now, you may not even be like looking at all outside of it. But I'm interested in kind of your take on where the market is for buying businesses right now.
I see. No, last year I would have said no. I mean, everything was inflated at the beginning of last year. The valuations were insane. But around mid last year, they started coming down. And now it's, I think there are a lot of deals out there. And if you look at the demographic trends, Cody Sanchez talks about this all the time. It's like you've got the baby boomers retiring. they're sitting on a lot of great businesses. They may not be like the sexy D2C brand, but their kids don't want them because they want to all be TikTok stars, and just being able to buy a really boring business that cash flows where you could do something like add on e-commerce as a channel is a great opportunity.
Yeah. I'm more and more excited about the unsexy, boring businesses. Just more conversations I have with people. I'll talk to somebody who runs I think I wrote an email about this, but I was talking to one of my friends who runs a marketing agency, and he mostly works with like manufacturing companies in the heartland. Those are his guys. Mm-hmm. And I say guys because it's like all men in that business. And, he's got maybe 60, 70 clients, something like that. And he talks to some of these guys, and they're like, he learns more and more about the business, and they're just incredibly profitable businesses these guys have built over like 12, 15 years. And the guys have great lives. They're clearing like 1 to 3 million a year.
Yeah.
And they're working like 2.5 days a week. And there's really no competition because they sell like this bizarre widget that nobody even knows of.
We saw this all the time in automotive.
Yeah.
Where,
that's it. Yeah.
Auto Anything was the retailer, but we sold, 600 different brands. But those brands that make car covers and seat covers and suspensions and like roof racks or whatever, they were just all old school manufacturers. I remember looking at one, it was like 100 million in revenue. It was like, well, what's the EBITDA on that? The guy's like 30 million, or like 30 million a year. This guy's just like pocketing. And it's like family owned business.
Yeah. He owns a town, like a small town, which is his town.
We're just like here, like fear in the gladiator ring of like D2C, like fighting it out, just to get our CPAs down on Facebook.
Well, that's what you're saying with like, but with the Facebook and people wanted to like diversify after the COVID boom. I just think of like the saying, like live by the sword, die by the sword. It's like with Facebook, there's people out there that were just ringing the cash register all the way up. And then the winds changed and the bottom just dropped to nothing. Yeah. It's like the moon door in Game of Thrones, just tossed down.
You couldn't be a lazy marketer. I mean, it's really like the last 10 years made marketers lazy. You just threw money at Facebook and you got an ROI.
Yeah.
And that just kind of stopped until you didn't, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, back to PostPilot. Right now, like, how do you win for people? Like, what's just like the killer thing that you guys are seeing right now that's just working for your clients?
Yeah, I mean, the app has come a long way. It started with a core retention use case, win backs and abandoned carts and stuff. And then we layered on retargeting. Someone visits your site. They're not a customer. They didn't drop their email. We can correlate that with a physical address and drop a card. And then the latest has been prospecting, where you do.
So that last thing you said. So people can go, you see people visit the website. You don't have their email address.
Correct. And
you can correlate. Is it IP address?
It's based off IP.
Yeah. So you've got the IP, link that to an address. So you can send them a card.
Right.
Money.
And it's people get freaked out by it when it's email, like retention.com started that.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit less intrusive with direct mail, because there's still.
Well, because you're used to it. You're used to random stuff coming to you at all times.
It's probably a little bit of it. Yeah. But that works really well. It's called Site Match. And I would say like a direct mail win back is a no-brainer for every brand. And then I would do Site Match too I can almost universally say those things are working for anyone.
And they're also what's nice about them is that they're kind of like just ongoing, automated. You know, you're not like, oh, I need to drop 50K here to test this thing. Yeah.
That's more on prospecting. So prospecting, you know, we do a lookalike, just like direct mail is like email on retention. It's like Facebook on acquisition. You know, we do a lookalike off your data, and you could do a drop. But I think there's a little bit, okay, I'm going to spend 50K or 100K on a postcard drop or a catalog drop. And I don't know, people get cold feet sometimes. Like they don't want, you know, the bigger brands have no problem doing it. You can certainly test into it to show the ROI on the way. But I think the retention use case and the retargeting use cases are no brainers.
It's cool. Yeah. I mean, I've seen it like dozens and dozens of times with clients. Just you get it set up and it just continues to work and drive sales. And yeah, I think some aspect of what you were saying, like people don't get freaked out about the direct mail. It's almost like you create this bizarre ecosystem where somebody goes and they see something they're interested in, and then they see it everywhere. And then, you know, I'm in that funnel right now for a protein company. I was going to buy some protein, and it's just, they're phenomenal. Transparent Labs. Like I looked at it once, then they're just everywhere. I'm like, this company must be gigantic.
Yeah.
But I think they just follow me around.
We work with this one meal replacement drink, Kachava, which has gotten huge. And I was talking to their head of retention the other day, and she said, you know, you say our name into a phone, and you're going to see us, you're going to see us anywhere. I'm like, what's freakier, getting a postcard, you know, a couple weeks later or a week later, or that what she just said? I would say like that's freakier.
Yeah. You've got some, you know, you're in a public toilet, somebody's sliding the Kachava thing underneath by your feet.
I think what a lot of people don't realize is like how much on the retention side, like how much of your previous buyers are not actively subscribed and opening your emails.
Totally.
You know, that's always eye-opening, and we can show it to you in Klaviyo, or you can look it up yourself. I've done a couple posts on this, but it's, you know, it's
I think
often like
the part
90%.
that people forget is those are actual like real people. And that's the thing when you look at it in Klaviyo, it just looks like a little list, right? But it's it's a person who has your product at their house.
Right.
That's a real person that at one point was super fired up about your business enough to purchase 1, 2, 3, 10 things that you have.
Sure.
And I feel like there's, in a sense, sometimes as the business gets larger, you can almost dehumanize the people on the list because there's so many of them.
Yeah. And we still see like a better return, even going out 4 years, you know, like the recency of 4 years or 5, like this customer hasn't purchased or hasn't purchased in 4 years from your brand. If you make an audience out of that and drop a direct mail campaign, you'll do better than cold traffic. Like it's still that way. So it's a lot of brands are sort of, I don't know, it's lower hanging fruit than cold acquisition.
Yeah. Drew, I know you got to go. So I want to wrap up here. I appreciate you hopping on. I know you guys, so like Q4, I know there was something that you were running for CMOs. Are you guys still doing that? Or are we past the timeline for your guys?
When will the podcast launch?
Next week.
Yeah, I mean, part of the beauty of owning our own facility at this point is that Epstein's going to kill me, but we could get campaigns out through mid-November to hit for Black Friday. Just please don't wait. You know, don't be like Drew said on November 14th.
Yeah.
And then come to us with like a
$100,000
drop.
Drew on Thanksgiving Day, he's he's at the warehouse printing your stuff.
Yeah, but I'll give you the
But at least
link.
he woke up early and meditated, and then he did it.
I don't want to make it sound like I'm all zen. I get stressed out just like everybody else, you know. I think you caught me at a good time.
Okay, they just shoot you an email or go to PostPilot.
Yeah, I'll give you a link. It's like holiday/GFO is a go fast offer, and you get like 3 months for 4 months for the price of 3. We build out all these holiday campaigns for you. It's kind of like the 101 of what you want for holiday, like a good solid foundation.
Cool. I'll put the link in the show notes. Dude, Drew, super good to catch up. I know you got to hop off and you got a call.
Yeah, I could talk to you for like another hour.
I know. We'll have to do another more prolonged version. But man, great to hear from you, and thanks for hopping on.